It is my privilege to be speaking with Judith Collins, not only a gifted aura reader from birth and an energy healer, but an expert on sustainable living. And you have lived this way for over 50 years,
Yes,
and you live in Buxton, New South Wales in Australia, correct?
yes.
All right. Thank you, Judith. Thank you for your time in doing this interview again. I'm very excited about this interview. Now, your husband and yourself,
Mhm.
you managed to be 83% self-sufficient on this
Yes,
list.
yes.
Yes,
These days it would be closer to about 89%.
89%
Yes,
self-sufficient.
yes,
And the land that you're living on is like bushland.
yes, yes,
Australian bushland. So
yes,
that's in itself its own environment. So I'm very
yes.
interested to hear how you've made sustainable lifestyle on this land.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you have traveled the world educating people on how to live this way.
Yes,
You've done documentaries. Was it the ABC who's interviewed you? On,
yes, yes.
yes.
The Singaporean television crew came out and stayed with us, lived on the property for 10 days and filmed and documented our lifestyle and took that back to Singapore.
So this is a really big deal. The knowledge that you have and what you offer to people to live this way as well, to educate them. And that's why you opened a school to the public called Earthkeepers.
Yes,
And that's also your website,
yes.
earthkeepers.com.au.
Mm-hmm,
All
mm-hmm.
right. So, again, welcome. So, can you share with us how this way of living began for you?
Oh, in November 1969, I was walking down the street and I saw a sign on the telegraph pole and it said global warming, greenhouse effect, and greenhouse effect, global warming. That's what it said. And it was a meeting at the town hall in Sydney. And so I decided I was going to go to that because it was interesting, it was something to do. So I went to the meeting and I was the youngest person there. I was only a teenager. And all the rest were scientists and doctors of different sort of things, doctorates of nature and doctorates of botany and all that kind of thing. Anyway, so I sat through the meeting, sat at the back, and when I walked out after the meeting, I was just stunned with everything that I heard. And I sat myself down on the front steps of the town hall. And I just watched all the traffic moving by and watching all the people walking past. And I thought to myself, what are you doing out here? Why weren't you in there? Why didn't any of the general public turn up? Why was it academics? They invited the public, and there was only about 5 of us from the general public. Well, then, not long after that, I met Paul. Weeks later, I met Paul. And I was just so hell-bent that this was the only way to live with Mother Nature. So convinced Paul, and then what we did was most probably to most people these days, ridiculous. We lived in a country town. We both lived in a country town that had 2 steam trains a day, right? One at 7:30 in the morning and one at 10:30 in the morning, and only one of them coming home. So your time schedule going anywhere was locked in by the trains. Paul and I used to cut a sandwich and get our drink, and we'd get the train and we went into the Sydney New South Wales Library in Sydney, and we'd have a list of questions. We came up with the idea that if we wanted to grow food and be environmentally sustainable, we'd need to look at other countries. Now, in those days in Australia, we only had a 10-minute gardening session on ABC television. The only garden magazines were around were about growing roses and bulbs. There was no growing vegetables. They were just a spring or a summer supplement that went into the Woman's Day or the Woman's Weekly. That's all it was. There was
Mm.
nothing around.
Mm.
trying to find going. You couldn't go into a news agency and pick up a magazine. You couldn't go and couldn't go into a news agency and buy a book. You had to go to the library. So Paul and I come up with this idea, and we said to ourselves, what countries have similar climates at any time of the year as Australia? So we came up with Spain, we came up with Portugal, we came up with Mexico, we came up with south of France, we came up with all these countries. And so then we started to study what are their native foods, what are their native flavours, how do they prepare them, how do they store them, what's the tradition associated with it. And so that's how we started. We took the train every Saturday, 3 weeks in a month for approximately 8 to 9 months until we had exhausted all the countries that we could get any information out of. Yes.
Goodness me, you really did research it, and you didn't just potter around on some land and just let it go and see what happened. You actually really studied it and planned it in great depth before.
Well, my mother was a gardener. She grew parsley and mint. That was her edibles, right? That was common.
Yes.
Paul's father grew tomatoes in summer, and that was his limitation. There was nobody that knew anything. There was nobody around us that knew anything. Mm.
Right. Okay. So then tell us about how, with your bush block,
Yeah.
how that knowledge became the transparency, if you like, the map for your block.
Well, we became extremely well known because we were of what we were doing. I was invited to go to different organisations, say the Rotary Club, the View Club, those types of things.
Mm.
And then word started to spread. And they were just clubs that were within our region. They weren't outside our region. But human networks are fantastic. And so the word started to spread. And then I was asked to do a column, a gardening column. Mind you, I was no age at all. 19, I think, 19. And I was writing a column, a gardening column on working with Mother Nature in a regional newspaper. And then the word just spread from there, and another newspaper picked it up, and then a Sydney newspaper picked up the article, and then it just started to grow. And I'm glad that it grew I think over about a 2 or 3 year period it grew, because we were learning at the same time. Meanwhile, my clever husband, who'd never done anything with his hands, he was teaching himself how to shear a sheep, how to wash the wool, how to do all of those things. I was learning cheese making. We were teaching ourselves all these courses because there was no one around us. And we were learning it all from books. There was no YouTube, there were no documentaries, there were no videos, there was nothing. You had to be self-taught. Paul could take a car, any car, he could put it up on the hydraulic hoist, he could pull the motor out of it, strip the motor down, rebuild the motor and put it back in, no matter what car it was, and also too, whether it's a tractor, a bobcat, a backhoe. He could do the lot because he was self-taught, and he taught himself all of that before he was 27 years old. Taught himself how to build, how to decorate, how to do the plumbing, electrical work, plaster work, fix the cars, fix the tractors.
And
also too, Paul made the most delicious sausages and salamis.
My goodness. So when you've learnt that, you have that knowledge, it does become a bit of a template to be able to problem solve and work other things out. You sort of,
Yes.
you develop
Yes.
a bit of I know from my own experience, you develop a bit of a template and you can carry that across into other things.
Yes, you can.
So there's lots of questions I need to ask you. One of them is, what exactly is permaculture? Because that's been one of the main things that you do. Is that correct? permaculture?
We started all our work years before permaculture began in Australia. Permaculture came out of a university study, had nothing to do with Paul and I.
Right.
We had taught ourselves techniques from the ancient Romans and techniques of storing water from ancient Spain. And in permaculture, they use berms, which are raised beds, and swales, which is the canal between the beds. And as the rain, and you build it on the contours of the land. So as the rain falls, it comes down and it gets trapped and it sinks down into the beds of your plants, and it captures the water. Well, that was designed and used in ancient Spain. We had that system already on our property before permaculture began, and it was the ABC who linked the permaculture people up with us, because when permaculture started to, when the two academics started to explain what it was, the ABC reporter said, hang on, we've got a couple living, and they're doing all that. So that's how we came into their system. I heavily promote permaculture for anyone who wants to work naturally. If they're living in an urban landscape and they only have a front yard, or they only have a side lane beside their villa, or a little backyard, permaculture will work on a balcony. So that's what you go and study. You can go and get a book on it. You can find it online. You can find lots of information available. But permaculture is what I highly recommend to everybody.
All right. So this is something that I know nothing about, and maybe some viewers feel the same as me. So can you explain, or give us an example of permaculture on a balcony or in a front yard if you live in just in a suburbia? How does that look?
Permaculture, like ancient times, right? We came from learning about ancient Spain with its hot, dry, no rain climates, long periods with no rain. Then we learned about ancient Rome and how they worked their canals. So when permaculture came along, we saw the same, because they had done all the study, the academic study. So all of that was put into it, as well as what we had done. But we had done it 10 years earlier, right? 10 years earlier. So now, permaculture on a balcony. What does permaculture do? Permaculture, like Paul and I taught ourselves, looks at your balcony. In that direction, is that east? Is that direction north? Does that direction northwest? You've got to know how your balcony faces the elements. You've got to know whether or not there's two tall trees nearby that for 3 or 4 hours shade that. You've got to know whether or not the wind sweeps through it. You've got to know whether or not the rain blows in. They're the things that you can do. Everybody can do that. Everybody can do that. And that tells you that, for instance, if you've got a big tree nearby that shades your balcony for 2 or 3 hours, that allows you to extend the growth of your basil all spring, all summer, and way into autumn. So, because basil hates the heat. It likes dappled light. So there's ways of doing things. So permaculture, like the way that we do our system, which we just call it working with Mother Nature, they teach you to look at the elements and then design what you want in pots. On a balcony, you can grow a lot of food. I taught the dean of one of the universities here in New South Wales how to create a farm on his balcony, and he did. He loved raspberries, so he grew raspberries on his balcony, but he grew vegetables. You can have long pots, very long pots. You can have potatoes in one. You can have red onions or brown onions or white onions in another, or you might have red shallots in that. You can have passion fruit growing up one wall, if that's the one that keeps most of the heat during the day. On the other side, you can have something that doesn't need the heat growing up the wall. You can have raspberries growing in the hottest part. You can train them into a bush, like in Spain. All the raspberries are trained into bushes. They're not grown in vines. So it's a matter of what you learn. But in all your pots, all your different pots, and the beauty of working in pots is that each vegetable requires specific types of soil nutrients. If you grow potatoes in a garden, they will suck out everything that the garden has to offer in nutrients. So anything you plant after that has to be fairly resilient and not demanding, or otherwise it will just shrink. Your plants don't die, but they don't thrive. Yeah.
That's why it's important to compost, put the compost on our soils to replenish it.
Yes, but you don't, once you have developed organic soils, you never have to touch them again.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Fashion market gardeners.
Yes.
Old-fashioned market gardeners would build their soil up for 10, 15 years, and then after that, the soil ran its own race.
Have you come across any misconceptions people have about permaculture?
I come across people who studied permaculture and never put it into action. I think that's sad. They pay hundreds of dollars to do a course and they never do anything with it. As far as misconceptions of permaculture, I think people can, if they don't study it, they can try and guess what it is, and that's when they make mistakes with it. But permaculture is what it says: permanent culture, permanent agriculture. That means mankind, only sets it up and then steps back and lets nature do it for the next 150 years.
That makes sense.
That's perfectly how permaculture does it.
Yes, that's great. And I
Absolutely
understand.
wonderful. We create a food forest. I have a food forest.
Yes.
And the food forest has it has all the fruit trees and nut trees, berries, and vine fruits and bananas and all those types of things growing. And then underneath where the bananas are, that's where the Peking ducks live. And Peking ducks don't fly. They can only fly a metre high. So therefore they go in and they lay their eggs naturally in amongst the bananas. So they make their little nests so we can go and find them. That way the ducks think that they're living in a forest. The chickens live in with the stone fruit trees and the nut trees and so on. And we have zones, and we have a zone which is a temperate zone, and that grows fruits and nuts and berries from the likes of Japan and places like that. And then we have the subtropicals, and the subtropical does everything mostly around Australia and different parts of the world. Then we have the tropical zone, and that does the Cape of Capricorn, and it does the Caribbean, and it does all the plants from there. And then we have the hot zone, and that does parts of all the pomegranates, desert plants, olives, pomegranates, hazelnuts are further up, because they like their water to run off them. They don't like to be sodden. So I'm just trying to think. There's pomegranates in there, almond trees like it to be dry. So there's almonds in there, pomegranates, aloe vera's in there, agave, Mexican agave is in there as well. Yeah, so that's in the hot zone. The whole area is fenced.
Yes.
That's to keep foxes out.
Yes.
And dogs that people dump in the bush. Yes. Okay. So that keeps the chickens. In a permaculture system, you have animals who do the work. You have chickens who are your rotary hose. So they scratch it all up, turn it all over. That's good for the soil, but not a lot of it. So they've got to be put away, right? Okay. Then you have ducks, which are your slug and bug catchers, and they've got their web feet, so they push down and flatten everything that the chickens have ripped up. Then you have your geese, which are your grass cutters. They cut all your reeds and all your weeds that are coming up and keep it all down there. Then you have your guinea fowl come through, and guinea fowl go through and pick up all seeds and various things like that. And so that's your bird life. But do chickens free range all the time? No, because they damage the terrain.
Yes.
So the chickens are in a huge area. We have the temperate area is fenced with an adjoining gate which opens into the subtropical, so we can have the chickens in there, and we can open the gate and let them in. And in the tropical area, subtropical and tropical area, are the bananas, and so we let the chickens in there with the ducks at times. And then the chickens go down to the hot area, but we move them. We never let them stay in one area because they completely destroy it. If you put 100 chickens on an acre of land and give them a month, they'll denude it.
Wow. Yeah.
Yes.
And is there anything that you've found really tricky to grow? Because it sounds like you have everything. Is there anything that's been...
No, because we create what's called microclimates.
I see. Tell us about that.
Microclimate is setting up a climatic circumstance for plants to thrive. Now, in our self-sufficiency, this is to do with us and not permaculture. In our self-sufficiency, we have two philosophies that we teach everyone. Work smarter, not harder, is number one. Number two, have 3 reasons for taking any action or making any decision. That way you'll always get your best value out of it. So in a microclimate, in the temperate area, we have a function room, where we teach courses. Next to that is a big shipping container with a mural on it. Next to that are 2 25,000 litre water tanks. So that creates 1, a fence. 2, the roof goes right across the shipping container and the function room and fills the tanks. That's number 3 reasons for doing that. But the most of all, what it does, the northern sun in the morning, the eastern sun, the northern sun, and the northwest hits the function room, the shipping container, the tanks, reflecting heat, and that heat goes back into the Japanese berries. It goes into the cherry trees. It goes into the plums, and it goes into the pears, and yes, it does all that.
I see what you mean. That's really clever. Really clever.
Yes, but you can do that on a balcony because the sun hits the brick wall, or it hits the glass sliding doors. It hits the other wall. You just follow the sun.
I see. All right, I'm getting it. And so what are some steps that people can take today to begin living more sustainably?
All right.
Because, it's fruit and vegetables are getting very expensive out there, and some people are really struggling, and I just thought this might be good information for them.
There's a lot of easy things for people to do in their home. Very, very easy things.
Okay.
What you have to do is you have to think about what flavors you like, not what the type of food you are. Like if you like onions in your food, if you want to make a nice white onion sauce for fish or something, or just with potatoes, you want to do that, you don't need an onion to do it. An onion will take 5 months to grow in a pot. So forget that, right? And once you pick it, it's gone, right? Now, what you do is you get a tray of red shallots, and you grow them in a pot, most probably a long, narrow pot. And when you grow those in there, they will grow for years and years and years and years and years, and you are never without the flavour of onion. So they grow in a little shoot like that, little red shoots like that, with tall green tops. So you can take the tops off and you can put that in soup. It will flavour soup. It will flavour stock. It will flavour a sauce. It will flavour potatoes. It will flavour steak, whatever you're eating. And then the little red bulb at the bottom is stronger again. So that's when you get your stronger flavour. If you're in France, you will find red shallots used more often than onions are ever used to flavour French food.
Right.
So
Okay.
you can grow them in your balcony on a sunny to mid-sunny area, and in the pot it will grow for years. Years and years and years and years and years. As you pick them, they grow. As you pick them, they grow.
Mm.
Yes. So you've got that. You can also have a pot where you've got different flavors. What flavors do you like? Well, the stock standard is basil, but you can get a Greek basil, which is perennial. And basil, the green basil you eat, everybody thinks it's Italian, and it's not. It's French.
Oh,
I
wow.
laugh at people saying they're putting it in their Italian food, and it's a French basil. The Italian basil has is a grey colour, and it's a very small leaf. So
Oh.
you can grow Greek basil, which is like a ground cover, and you can grow that around your spring onions, your red onions. So you can
And
have two plants together. And the only thing you have to do is just go to one very cheap place where you can buy a bottle of liquid fertilizer, and just after you've picked a lot of things, just give it half a bottle of diluted liquid fertilizer, and that just keeps boosting it all the time. But there's
and,
lots of things.
yeah, and the liquid fertilizer, like I'm not promoting any brand, but like a sea soul, because that's sea soul, is that sort of one
Oh
that,
yeah, but there's cheaper things you can get than that.
all right,
You can go to Coles or Woolies or anything, and you can get a great big bottle for nothing.
okay,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
great. Okay, and now could you please tell us what companion planting is all about?
Ah. Mm.
Yeah,
Now you're treading into my expert field with
excellent.
the auras, right? As a child,
Aha.
it's the plants that get along and love each other and share in their families and marry for life, and become lovers. I think that explains it.
Yes.
Companion planting comes in all different categories. Um, you have Now I have to talk about my favourite plants. If I'm going to talk about companion planting, I'm going
Yes.
to talk about some of my favourite now, which won't be anybody else's favourites. Sow thistle, which is a weed, is a tall weed with a yellow flower. It's called the doctor plant, the nursing plant, because it self-sows where the soil is starting to become depleted. And it sends its roots down into the subsoil. It brings up all the nutrients from the subsoil so that the topsoil can feed on it. If you cut the plant off at soil level, every rabbit, every chicken, every pig, all the animals know that it's got vitamin C. The flowers are rich in vitamin C, and you put it anywhere near an animal, and they'll bite your hand off for it.
Whoa.
They love it. They love it.
Yeah. Yeah. And
All of these plants, most of the weeds we've got in Australia were brought here by the British. They don't occur naturally. And the British had to bring what they knew was both food and medicine. This is another
mm,
subject altogether, my
oh
dear.
my goodness.
Yes, I've given lectures to the National Historic Society of Australia on foods that the British brought with them for everybody to eat.
Gee.
So in everybody's garden, so we look at the sow thistle. The top of the sow thistle, which is the fine little leaves, which are lovely. They taste like celery, and you chop them up and you can fold them with steaming potatoes and get a celery flavour. You can put them in a pasta dish. You can put them in with salads and tomatoes and mushrooms. They work very well with mushrooms. The larger leaves down there are then used for stir frying as a vegetable, full of magnesium and calcium and a whole range of different things. And then when you get down to the root of it, that gets stronger in flavour again. So that goes into stocks and various things.
Mm.
But if you want to take off the top leaves and save them for eating and take the stalk down there, and you want to boil some water and you chop that up and put it in the water, and then you let it steep for 7 minutes, and then let the water cool, and then gargle it. It relieves the inflammation of a sore throat. So when the British brought these plants to the colony, right, to the colony, they had to be both food and they had to be medicine that was traditionally understood and prepared and used in their home country.
Right.
And couch grass, which your husband will understand, couch grass, everybody knows it as growing everywhere. And that's why the British brought it, because it grows everywhere, whether it's dry, whether it's wet, whether it's burnt out, it still keeps growing. Couch grass was brought to this country because of all the different things that it can do. And when you take couch grass and you cut off the roots, you wash it, cut off the roots, and the little shoots at the back, at the bottom of the couch grass, you gather those up, let them dry out. It only takes a couple of weeks to dry out. You pound those and it makes flour, and that's how they made flatbread.
Oh my goodness. I actually was at my property yesterday weeding, and I was ripping up all of that with my hands. They've
How
got long,
dare
long
you?
roots on them.
How dare
I know,
you?
I filled up the green bin with it. I'm so sorry.
Well,
Had no idea.
if you eat it, it's lovely. It
Gee,
really is lovely.
really lovely. I'm looking at it a whole new way now. I feel
And
bad that I put them in.
if you take the middle shoots of it once again
Mm.
and you boil those up and let it steep for a few minutes, about 3 minutes, and then you just sip it very slowly, one mouthful, swallow it, one mouthful, swallow it. It will, if you're clogged up in your system, your food won't move. If you've got a tummy upset, that's what it was brought to this country for. Yes. And that's
I
what it
see.
works on.
I see. I wonder,
It's for pigs.
cats like to eat grass. I wonder if that's why they're doing
No,
that.
that's a different grass they eat. That's a
Different
different
grass
grass
they
they
eat.
eat.
Okay, okay. All right. Gee. And what other are your favorites that you would like to share with us?
Oh, most probably dandelion.
Oh yeah.
Dandelion is a maternity word. It's an eternity ward for earthworms.
Earthworms.
Yes.
So when you see a
Dandelion has a,
dandelion, yep,
dandelion has a very long tap roots, about that long, right?
right.
Anyway, so it goes down and it cracks the soil. There's a reason for it. When it goes down into the soil and cracks it just slightly so you can't see it with the human eye.
Mm.
But when it rains, it allows the rain to get past the topsoil into the subsoil so that the nutrients in the subsoil don't dry up and die.
How did you find this out?
Oh, years of living like this. And
Oh,
so what happens with the
gee.
dandelion, I love dandelions, I love dandelions. And dandelions growing in the garden are, or I'll give you a perfect example. There'll be old farmers out there, old farmers in their 90s who understand what I'm talking about. A farmer could walk onto his field, onto his paddock, and he would look at what weeds were growing, and he knew whether or not this paddock had too much calcium and magnesium in the soil. This one had a
Mm.
balance of all the nutrients. This one had no water. This one had tons of water. He would know where the water was draining just by looking at the weeds. So they used to read the landscape by the weeds. So getting back to dandelion, dandelion likes to create moisture in the ground. Earthworms come in, lay their eggs, and then dandelions have little nodules on the edge of the roots, and the earthworms come in and feed on those nodules, and then they go off on their merry way. So I call dandelions a maternity ward.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Very interesting. So, okay, are there any surprising plant pairings that people often overlook?
That's an interesting question.
I don't know where I got this question from.
No, but it's a very interesting question because there are quite a few. There's quite a few, quite a few.
Okay.
Often
Well,
you get a perfume flower that's
yes.
sweet and lovely with a sour bush or a pepper bush, and people can't see how they go together. Um, one of the things I have everywhere in the garden is bulbs, lots of them, thousands of them everywhere, because they all pop up at different seasons. They all like different locations. They all flower at different types of the year, and they all bring companion and beneficial insects into the garden. So those that have got moisture will bring in all the lacewings because they like moisture, and then you've got all the other companions. You've got wasps and you've got beetles and you've got yeah, all
And
the
should we plant flower bulbs like daffodils or
yes,
hyacinthus, or should we
yes.
plant them near vegetables?
Yes, yes. You don't have to put them in the vegetable garden, but in the vegetable garden you could have 6 or 7 pots of flowering bulbs, but make sure they flower at different types of the year because that means you'll have bees there all the time.
Mm. All right, so that's good because yeah, in your
Mhm.
book Companion Gardening,
Yes.
you've put diagrams here.
Mm.
I'm just trying to find one quickly on the hop here. Um, the one I was looking at, oh, here you go with, looking at the sun, the north, south, east, and west. But you were talking about a row of sunflowers and then a row of lettuce, and then you
Yes.
had some feverfew over there, and you had,
Yes.
and
Yep.
everything was layered. And I thought, why have you put sunflowers with a row of veggies?
Well, I'll give you an example of a veggie garden that I went out to. I went out to my veggie garden at lunchtime. Now, if you're running a vegetable garden, you do not plant things in a row
Oh,
because that's setting up an airport runway for
mhm.
all the bugs to come in and just and eat everything
Right.
in a row. So
Gee.
what you do when you have a veggie garden, you grow your seeds in a punnet or you buy them in from the nursery, whatever you do, and you say, right, I've got a punnet of cabbages. Those cabbages, there's 8. Now, I've got a garden over there that gets the morning sun, but that's all it gets. So I'll put 3 cabbages over there. And then I've got one that gets full sun, so I'll put 3 over there. Now I've got 2 left. I've got one that only gets afternoon, so I'll put one there. And then I've got one that has sun moving around it from all different times of the day, so I'll put one there. Now what that does, that allows me, the ones that are in the full sun, they will harvest first. The ones that are in the morning sun, they will harvest second. The ones that are in the afternoon sun, they will harvest next. So you're not picking all your crops at the same time. Plus, also too, you're spreading the crops around, so you're not getting bugs concentrated in one area.
So
So
clever.
if you, for instance, have a garden bed like your husband, right, like your husband growing his vegetables with his chickens,
Yes.
um, you plant the tallest plants in the middle because they're your trees. They're the trees in the forest. So, like you said in the diagram, corn sits there in the middle.
Mm.
Now, corn is an aerial rooted plant. All its roots sit above the soil, which means it can move because it's not pollinated by bugs. It's pollinated by the wind. And so
Mm.
it's got to be able to move in the breeze. But when you get a turbulent wind, it blows the corn over. So I thought, lettuce doesn't like the sun. Everybody plants it in the sun and it goes to seed. It doesn't like the sun. Lettuce grows on the outskirts of a forest in dappled light.
Mm.
So with corn, when the corn's about, I don't know, about 20 centimeters, 30 centimeters high, you then put little lettuce plants, little heart lettuce plants like minuets or iceberg or imperial lettuce, and you plant them in between the corn because as they start to expand,
Mm.
they're holding the corn upright so it can move, but it can't fall over. Plus, also, too, lettuce don't take moisture out of the soil. They help keep the moisture in. Um, Corn is like trying to feed a pet elephant. How much would you feed it? How much water would you give it? And so that's what corn does. It takes everything. Now, corn takes all the nutrients out of the garden. So what do we do about that? On the corners of that bed, we plant bush beans, lovely yellow butternut bush beans on the corner. That feeds, as it's growing, it's feeding the nitrogen and the nutrient back into the soil that the corn is taking out. Meanwhile, the lettuce is keeping the moisture in the garden and holding the corn upright. But we've got one more trick.
Yeah.
So what we do is when everything's settled, we put a cucumber plant right in the middle of the lettuce, in the lettuce beds, and let it wind its way around the corn. The corn supports the cucumber. We're picking corn, we're picking cucumber, and all we've done is use one garden bed.